Hey guys, well, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Courtney Keeter. I am a kindergarten teacher in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. So if you hear the accent, yes, we are very southern. So I can tell you some fun facts about me just to kind of break the ice and get things rolling. I have 5 dogs. Yes, 5. And I love them. Dogs are actually my favorite animal. So when we return to school, I will be in my 3rd year of teaching kindergarten. I love kindergarten because I love integrating physical activity, games. I like to run and work out. I love music and I just like to have fun. So, kindergarten is the perfect grade level for me. I also love the growth in kindergarten, seeing them just coming in and comparing where they were at the beginning of the year to the end of the year is just so incredible and incredibly rewarding. So that's why I love teaching kindergarten. So I'm super passionate about teaching because, long story short, I was raised by my grandmother, and she is a retired school teacher of over 35 years. So my love for teaching kind of stemmed down from my grandmother and just learning from her, and she is a wonderful, incredible lady. So let's get started. What are we going to be talking about today? Well, mainly I'm going to be talking about differentiation in the classroom. What does that look like in my classroom, and how could it relate to you? What could you take from this presentation to incorporate in your classroom in the future? And also, I will be giving you some organizational strategies to kind of keep those differentiated groups rolling, because trust me, I know from experience, you can plan a great lesson, but if you can't remember where you put some of your papers, or you have a stack of things that need to be filed, it's going to be a little hard to get that lesson going, and you're going to spend a lot of time looking for materials. So I'm just going to add that in because I feel like that will help you. And I will just talk about the community in my classroom and kind of how we acknowledge our diverse attributes and our talents and things that we need to work on, and how that helps in differentiation in the classroom. So I hope that you take away something from this presentation. I will drop my email in the presentation below, so if I can help you in any way, please feel free to reach out. All right, let's get started. All right, guys, so we're going to be talking about differentiation in the classroom. What does that look like in my classroom? How do I achieve that? And then I also have some other strategies and pointers for you guys. So if there is anything that you think that I might be able to help you with, please do not hesitate to contact me. My email's below, cdkeeter@clevelandcountyschools.org. So what we're going to be talking about today is my tips for differentiation in the classroom, and how I achieve that by having a warm, welcoming, and positive classroom community. Students know what we expect from them, and they know what to expect on a regular day in my classroom. I'm going to give you guys some organization tips, some motivation tips, and some resources at the end. Hopefully you can take away some of these resources and make them your own. So over the past few years of teaching, I have kind of adapted what I've seen through my mentor teachers, my peers, and other teachers on social media platforms such as Instagram, or through other professional developmental trainings. So I think, honestly, just being a lifelong learner really aids in our teaching instruction, because each year changes, the student needs change, and as we move forward into the next few years, life as we know it is ever changing, right? Especially with COVID and all of the different demands on teachers. So I would just recommend having that buddy system with your mentor teachers. Really rely on your team, because they are honestly the reason why I feel successful at the end of every school year. Just leaning on them and kind of balancing out the workload and really helping each other. So, my classroom community, we start out with a morning greeting. So, these are posted on the wall right outside my door. And just to name a few, there is, we're doing air hugs this year because of COVID. Air 10, which is like a high five, but with both hands. And pirate, where they curve their index finger like a pirate's hook and say, "Arr, matey." Smile or silly face, those are just a couple. So students are greeted at the door. They are welcomed. They feel loved. They feel safe. And that just makes all the difference when you're trying to teach them new things and teach them to be kind to themselves and to others. So that's really important. Another thing that I utilize in the classroom is a classroom song. So some of you guys might have seen something similar online. This is one of my ideas that I kind of saw online and made it my own. A lot of teachers on the news or online have been making classroom songs, and we integrated our classroom rules into a classroom song, so we get to practice what the teacher expects from the students. We get to have fun and be silly and dance and then get our minds ready for the day. But that just really helps, singing our classroom rules and our classroom song. That just kind of piggybacks on having a positive environment and modeling for our students, modeling positive behavior and just being able to challenge them to look at things in different ways and just help each other with our weaknesses and build each other up and help each other see what different strengths that we have. So we talk about our differences. One example that I really like to use in the classroom is my assistant, Miss Morgan, is she's an amazing artist. She really is. She loves art and she just has a special talent for it. I love music. So we kind of just pause and take a minute and say, I like art. I want to get better at it. I'm working on it. But it's okay to ask Miss Morgan for help. It's okay that I'm not that great at it yet. It's okay that I'm still working at learning how to draw something so that you guys can be able to tell what I drew. My thing is music, and Miss Morgan's thing is not music, and that's okay. That's what makes us unique, and we can work on ourselves. We can build each other up and practice the different skill sets that we need to. So I think just setting the stage for diversity really helps with the differentiated groups because students know that each individual learns differently. We have different strengths and weaknesses, and we have different talents. So it just kind of sets the tone for our classroom community and our expectations for students and how they treat themselves and as well as each other. So my main source of differentiation is guided reading groups. And what I love about this is you can align it with your standards and specific learning goals. So if I have one group that needs to work on letters and sounds, it doesn't take away from the group that's already ready to read. They're reading leveled text and answering questions about the text, and they're already working on their tricky sounds. And that's okay because somebody, for example, one student may not have ever been to school. They may not have had pre-K. So they're still learning their letters and sounds. And another student that has went to pre-K several years and worked all summer long on letters and sounds, they might be ready to be challenged a little bit more. So that's why I love guided reading groups. We follow a really great program that is for grades K through 8. But again, you can change any of this to fit your classroom and your curriculum and instruction. Okay, so if you guys don't do guided reading groups, maybe you're middle or high school, you can still have small groups and work on their different areas of need. So if someone's struggling in pre-algebra, then you can have a group that works on that specific skill set while the other class is working in small centers or at independent work. You can also just have another group that needs to be challenged and maybe even push them to a new skill set that you haven't taught in the classroom yet, just to kind of differentiate the material and make sure that each student is getting exactly what they need. So my guided reading groups, we utilize leveled text. So each group has a different level according to where they're at. We also have leveled interactive activities and centers. So while I have a group at my table, my assistant has a group, and we have some other groups throughout the classroom. And they know how the centers work. We've practiced and modeled beforehand early on in the year. And we teach whatever center at my group or my assistant's group before they have the center on their own, so they know what's expected with them. Work with a partner. I love this because teamwork makes the dream work, and you can utilize your higher students that already know their letters and sounds, and they can really help their buddy out, and it takes some of the pressure off, and they love working with a partner. They love being able to chat and have some brain breaks, but also at the same time, we're still working on our standards, our letters and sounds, our counting, our math, whatever activity we're doing for the day. So utilize those students and assistants and volunteers in your classroom. It really makes a difference. So I have intervention groups inside and outside of the classroom. So our tier 2 and tier 3 students actually leave the classroom for a little bit during guided reading groups. And I can tell you, between working with them in the classroom, them getting pulled out for groups, and also having that support at home, I have one student that came to me probably after Christmas or right before Christmas and only knew one letter. But with all of these interventions and supports in place, she now knows every letter and every sound. The level of growth from when she came in and hadn't really had much schooling to where she is now is phenomenal. We are so proud of her. So that's just a great example to show you that if you are pulling those students, or if somebody else is pulling those students and working on exactly what they need, they're not losing any time. They're getting that specific skill set that they need to work on. And her growth has been tremendous. We are so proud of her. So that's just an example of how differentiation in the classroom can help students be successful. So welcome to our media center. So this room looked great before, but they have done even more work in this room and made it user friendly. Everything is organized neatly and it's accessible by leveled text. So our media center is a great source for leveled texts. There's already pre-made lesson plans. We'll talk about that a little bit later. You'll see some of that. They also have interactive games for centers. So this is a really fun thing to use. I can teach it in my center, or my assistant can teach it. Another student can teach it, and then after they practice it in our group, they can kind of work on their own. And it's fun, it's engaging. It's not just another worksheet, and they're actually practicing the things that they need to practice. We also have specific skill text. So I have in my hand Animal Phonics Readers. This is by Scholastic. This particular book is for grades K through 2. And it is a big collection of exciting informational books that target and teach key phonics skills. So what I love about this is it's different. It's differentiated. Does a student need to work on the short A sound, the short E? Because often in kindergarten they get some of the vowel sounds mixed up. Or are they having trouble with their tricky diagraphs, like diagraph TH or diagraph OO or diagraph CH? So there's books that target those specific sounds, and there's also interactive fun games. I love this book. So like I said, I am always looking for new things to try in the classroom. And I have actually not seen this book. This is probably one of our newer books, so we're actually going to use some of these fun games when we go back to school this week. So there's a phonics freeze and go, which is the phonetic version of red light, green light. Pop-in phonics, so you write words from the readers on cards and use as many different sounds as children have learned so far. And then you use your list to call out different sounds. For example, long U, and they read their word, and if they have the long U card, they pop up. Short A, and if they have the short A card, they pop up. So these are just fun examples that come from this book that differentiate what specific skill set they need to work on, and it also makes learning fun in the classroom. They're learning, they don't even realize that they're practicing phonics. They just think it's a game. So there's a lot of different ideas in here for fun games. There's also worksheets that help with assessing where the students are at and assessing their growth. So I'm looking at a page with some short vowel words to see if they can read those, and long vowel words, and you can actually also copy that and use it for short or long vowel bingo. All right, so here's some more pictures from our media center. So here is what I was reading from, the Animal Phonics Readers from Scholastic. And I know I said grades K through 2, but check out your media center. See what your library has for your grade level. And also check online, because there's plenty of things. We'll talk about Teachers Pay Teachers later if you haven't heard of that resource. Lakeshore Learning, Scholastic. There are all kinds of goodies out there. Differentiated texts that work on whatever your student needs to work on. So it just makes groups easy. It takes the guesswork out, because a lot of these texts come with pre-made lesson plans or just little different interactive games and things that just can aid in the students' learning. So over here we have some books that the students can listen to. It's a listening center. And over here is where our animal phonics readers are. So you can see this, it looks like the short A sound, the blend, it looks like PR, maybe GR. Sorry guys, it's kind of hard to see that one. WH, the long A sounds. So it's specific. If a student needs to work on one of those specific sounds, then that book targets that. And this is, they have a teacher's guide. That's what I was reading from earlier. And there's just all kinds of great resources in here to help with that specific skill set. So everything is leveled, okay? So over here is starting level A, which is right after the pre-A, which is the emergent reader. So we have all of the different levels organized, and we have different texts that are nonfiction as well as fiction. And a lot of these already come with pre-made lesson plans. And to be honest, this is just an assortment of just different things that different books and different plan of studies that they've collected over the years. So there's just all kinds of great resources in here. So if your library doesn't have something like that, maybe you guys can start building that. See what teachers have and what they're already doing, and maybe you guys can make like a community collection like this, because it really helps. You just grab what you need for the week and everything's already ready for you. So those were the different leveled texts that I just showed you. And over here is kind of a similar thing, but instead of it being a book, they are fun interactive pages. So I have one in my hand right here for level A, and it says, I see the weather. There's different focus questions. There's guided close reading, think aloud. So students are taught the tricky sight words that they may be struggling with, and then they point and read a sentence. And these are interactive because as they read, They can draw different things. Like this one says, I see the sun. So they read it, then they take out their dry erase board marker and draw the sun. Then the next one is, I see the rain. And then they can pull out their dry erase board marker and trace the umbrella and the raindrops. So that's just something fun that reinforces what they're reading, and they're able to make that connection with the text. So we have the leveled text books over here, and then we also have some leveled interactive pages that they can point and read. So this one's more sentence based. So my guided reading groups, we already talked about this, they're leveled. So an example is the pre-A, the pre-emergent reader, A, which is just beginning to read, and then C and above, this is my high readers. So small group instruction, again, really just helps students work on whatever skill set, whatever level they're at, because we put them in different levels according to similar needs. Okay, so if pre-A group are still working on letters and sounds, then they would all be grouped together. A group, they're just starting to learn how to read, and we're working on some reading strategies. And then C and above, they're reading some harder text, they're applying their sight words and their tricky sounds, and then they're answering questions about the text. So that's how I differentiate the different levels. They're extremely different. And then once they graduate from pre-A, they could move to A or even C and above. So guys, I don't make groups and leave them. They can constantly change based on students' needs. Or if they're pre-A in phonics, but they're doing great in math, then on our math day, they may be in the C and above group. So I love guided reading groups because they're one-on-one. Or when I do my guided reading groups, often we have 4 or 5 kids that have similar needs that come together. But I also utilize one-on-one and small group interventions in the afternoon as well. So my guided reading groups are about 4 to 5 students. And this looks different for each class and varies each year depending on the dynamics and the different things that the students need to work on. So I use school resources. This is super important. Use your volunteers, your assistants, and like we talked about before, other students in your classroom, because they can help out tremendously. So I have a spreadsheet that I will show you guys with data accessible and specific learning targets. So I'll show you guys that in just a few minutes. I also have organizational buckets to differentiate the material. It's already set up. I have 3 different buckets. All the things that I need for my pre-A group are in one bucket. All the things that I need for A group are in another bucket. And then everything else for my C+ group is all together. So all I have to do is grab and go. Prep it the week before and grab and go. Everything's already set up and ready for the day. So I really like the spreadsheet, and I'll show you guys a little bit more about that. I really like that spreadsheet because I know exactly where my students are at. And you guys know, once you work with students often, you don't really need a spreadsheet. You know who needs to work on what, and you just have a lot of experience with those students as the year progresses. But this is just really nice to have and look at. And then what I also do is I'll copy the notes and send parents home a little note with some positive things that they're doing in the classroom, as well as what they need to work on. So it's just nice to have something in written form if I need to pull that up. So here's my guided reading schedule. So typically, depending on what the students need, Monday through Wednesday, we do reading and phonics, because in kindergarten, our main focus is, do they know their letters and sounds? Are they learning how to blend words? Have they memorized their sight words? And are they applying that and learning how to read text? Thursday, I often incorporate writing once a week. And again, it just depends on the dynamics of the classroom. If we're really struggling with letters and sounds, then we're probably going to work on letters and sounds and review that as much as we can. But also we can review that with writing. So what happens here is in my pre-A group, I may call out a sound, write the letter that says So they're working on their letter knowledge, their letter sounds, and their writing skills. How I differentiate this is that C plus group, they already know their letters and sounds. They know their sight words, and they're writing a sentence on their own with modeling it first. And eventually, at the end of the year, they're writing on their own and sounding out words on their own. So that just goes to show you the difference between the group that needs a little bit of extra help and the group that is pretty independent. And then my A group is the middle of the road. Friday is math. And again, if my class as a whole is doing great with phonics, reading and writing, then we may throw in an extra math day. Or at the end of the day when we have extra time during independent work, I may pull some students back for whatever skill they need to work on, whether it be reading or writing or math. So interchange the groups according to your students' needs. What do they need to work on? How can you help that student reach their fullest potential? So I love how guided reading groups are interchangeable. So my guided reading group times this year is from 10:50 to 11:50. So I would say schedule out about an hour for guided reading groups or small group interventions. But if you're in a middle or high school, I would just say pull some groups back during independent work. If you can't commit a full hour to guided reading groups or small group instruction, make it work for you. Any of this that you see today can be changed. It can be changed to fit your needs and your classroom's needs. Your classroom needs. Sorry, guys. So students rotate through 4 centers every 15 minutes. This is my favorite way to do guided reading. And I spent a lot of time kind of perfecting how my centers run. So this is my favorite way out of all the things that I've tried so far. And if I have it one year and it doesn't work, then I'm open to try something new. As teachers, we just always have to adapt and just research different ideas and talk to our peers and just learn from them. That's why we are lifelong learners. So we have those 4 centers. So those centers might be iPads, independent, where they're working at their table, quiet corner, and then Miss Morgan, my assistant's table. And so what happens is students are rotating through those centers every 15 minutes. And then I call my students from those centers for our guided reading lessons. Our groups are leveled and specific. This is where organization comes into play, because if you are not ready for that group, especially in kindergarten, when our groups are about 15 to 20 minutes and they can only focus for about 10 to 15 minutes, so then they need a brain break, time is crucial. I've definitely had some days where I didn't have all of the materials pulled out that I needed, and it just took away from the group. That's fine. That is okay, guys. We're going to have days like that aren't perfect. I've definitely had lessons where I was so excited. I felt like the lesson was fun, engaging, and everybody was participating and they learned so much. And then I've also had lessons where I felt like students didn't learn anything, and I needed to go back and revisit. How can I teach this differently? Was I as prepared as I could be? So give yourself grace. It's fine. We're not perfect, but learn from your mistakes. That's just really crucial. Really important to learn that we're not perfect either, but we can learn from our mistakes and be ready to go to make this 15 to 20 minutes, or maybe it's even less. Maybe you have even less time to give. But if you're ready to go and everything is already laid out and specific, and you have a specific learning target for that group, then you're going to do great. No problem. And if not, you just go back to the drawing board and try again. So I see my pre-A groups daily. This is an adaptation from the Jan Richardson program that I use, and you'll see that in just a few minutes. So it's recommended to see them daily, and I rotate the other groups to where I'm at least seeing them 2 to 3 times a week. So here it is, our guided reading resources. So we use Jan Richardson's program, the next step forward in guided reading. So this is for grades K through 8. But if you're here and you're listening today, just know that any of this that you see can be adapted. You can use any of my tips and resources and use a different guided reading program. Use a different curriculum. You make it work for you, but I'm going to be showing you an example of how I use guided reading to differentiate in my classroom. So we follow the Jan Richardson program. I love this, guys. She's great. She has her own website. She has videos that I watched during my beginning teacher training. And everything is leveled, it's appropriate, it is specific, on purpose, with a purpose. So I love that she already has some lesson plans and specific skill activities ready for you. So if you are not utilizing this program, definitely look into it. If you have something that you're already using, great. See if you can combine some of this. See if her lesson plan works for whatever you're using, or adapt it to make it fit your curriculum. So here's an example of a pre-A lesson plan. Guys, this takes the guesswork out of everything. So whether you use this or something else, I'm positive that there are other resources like this for your grade level that are out there. You just have to do some digging. Ask your principal, your assistant principal, ask your technology person or your media center specialist, and ask other teachers what they use and if they integrate small groups in the classroom. So I love that she already has some working with names activities, so you get to choose one of these. So I love that it's interchangeable, it's different, and it's fun. Kids love to rainbow write and use magnetic letters. Again, if you're teaching the older groups, then you need to pick something a little bit more appropriate. But I love it. They love it. And they're learning the whole time. So working with letters. Match the letters in the bag. Match the letters to an ABC chart. This is my favorite. You'll see my setup in a little bit throughout this presentation. So basically what they do is they match the magnetic letter to the picture on the board. And it's just hands-on learning instead of just drilling with the flashcards all the time. They really get to interact with the board. Name the letters left to right or find the letter on an ABC chart. So I love how it's differentiated and students can learn the same skill set with different activities. So another resource that I love to use, and I am still purchasing some of their things on Teachers Pay Teachers, and I'm probably going to go back this summer and amp up my guided reading groups even more. So I love guided reading groups, and I feel like they are extremely beneficial. But there's some more of these things that I want to add to my centers and teach early on in the beginning of the year. It was just a little bit hard this year with COVID and kind of having a split schedule at first where students were only coming a couple of days a week. So I'm always eager to go back and learn and just revamp and add to a great program that we already have just to build it up and make it even more successful. So this is the Moffitt Girls Program and Centers. So you can see that they can spell out their different sight words. Do kids need to practice their sight words? And then they're using the dot marker to write it. So they read it, spell it, write it. So if you know they need to work on sight words, then that would be a good center for that specific group. Over here, if they're already working on their blends and tricky sounds, they can blend words, full, ag, flag. So I love how these groups are, again, interchangeable. What do your students need to work on? How can we make that fun? So over here are some words they can read and make with some Play-Doh center. And then here's an example of a fun interactive math center. And again, the Jan Richardson program recommends introducing a new center with the teacher first and practicing a couple of times with the teacher, and then they can later on become independent centers where the centers kind of run their own. They run on their own. And so if you don't teach elementary school, don't fret. You can pull small groups while the other students are working independently, or you can set up small groups in your classroom with different stations. What are they working on throughout the day? And even with the older students, just being able to get up and move around through different centers, you can set it up in a fun way. They're still working on specific material, and you can pull students that need extra one-on-one help back to your table, or put them with a higher student that can help teach them as well. All right, so this is my classroom. Here's my lovely guided reading table. So now you can see the whiteboard that I was talking about. So this one is magnetic, and we printed out our alphabet chart and stuck it in there, and then I just used, I believe, some double-sided tape to stick it to the magnetic whiteboard. And so what happens is students have their own little basket. Here's the magnetic letters. They have a pencil, a dry erase board marker, and an eraser. It just depends on what your students need to work with, but this is a great setup. You can see the little stations. And so what happens is they come and sit down, and if they're working on letters and sounds, they pull out the magnetic letters. They say the letter name, the sound, and the picture, and then match it to the picture. And students know that if they need help, no matter if it's a pre-A group, A or C plus, they know to raise their hand, because this is the most important part of our day, is just the one-on-one time with teachers. And make it fun. So I have these little finger puppets, so whenever they start reading, or if they're pointing and reading on the alphabet chart, they can put this on their finger, and it's just another way to read and have lots of fun while we're doing it. So another way to differentiate with these, every student can use this. It just depends on what material that student is working on. So my pre-A group would use these to point and say the alphabet, the letter name, the sounds, and the picture that makes that sound. And then my higher groups, my middle and higher groups, would be using these to point and read a leveled text and then answer questions about that text. Here are some magnetic letters. I love using this. This is another activity from the Jan Richardson program. And what happens here is the students say the letter name, the picture, what sound it makes, and then they tell me, is it Q or Y? And I can use this for all three groups, because even my higher group, sometimes at the beginning of the year, they just need that extra practice to differentiate between the vowel sounds, or like sometimes they'll get B and D mixed up. So I can have B and D here, and they'll say the picture, the letter name, the sound, and then they'll tell me where it goes. Like if I had a picture of a bear, they would say bear, B. And then if they get it wrong, we can kind of redirect them and kind of talk through that and see why they thought it was the other letter. And then if I have a picture of a dog, they would say dog, D, and the picture would go over here. So some of my kids this year, we were getting some sounds confused. Qu, y, and are pretty similar. So just comparing them side by side and sorting them into different groups, that's a really great activity to do, and just to practice the different sounds. All right, my pre-A group, so we've talked a little bit about this, and now you will really see the differences between all three groups. So my pre-A groups, we're working on name puzzles. Some of them still need to learn how to write their name in the correct order. So you saw a couple of the different name puzzles and activities on Jan Richardson's lesson plan. And she has lesson plans for all of the different groups. Like I said, it takes the guesswork out, guys. It's already done for you. So see if your school or your grade level team, see if they have something like that available for you. Or if not, maybe one teacher could do a lesson plan for this book, and another teacher could do a lesson plan for the other book, and then just share with each other, because it makes It makes it easier for you because you're not doing as much work. So this helps them recognize the letters in their name. Another example of an activity is at first they have their magnetic letters that are in their name. So they need to learn the letters in their name first before we start moving on and learning the rest of the alphabet. So I also have letter and letter sounds flashcards. This helps. I told you I was a music person, so we have a song, Alfredy, that we learn at the beginning of the year. A for apple, B for balloon, ba. So this really helps because they're saying the letter name, the sound, and then they're doing a hand motion that just helps them just become physical in the classroom, and it helps create that association with the letter, picture, and sound. And then when they graduate from that, we work on our physical phonics with our blends, digraphs, and tricky sounds. And it also has a picture, the letters that make that sound, and a hand motion. And Alfredy, I just found online. It's just a song that's already out there, so we changed it to make it fit our phonics card pictures. And the physical phonics is something that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers. So it's just a great resource to have. So you saw the magnetic letter board, so we talked about that. A letter sound sort, we talked about that also. And then my pre-A group, we're just really, really working on letter names and sounds and blending 2 or 3 letter words just to get them practicing that. They really need to practice that daily. My A through C groups, we're working on sight word puzzles. So they're given either magnetic letters or an index card that's cut up, and they spell the sight word with me on my whiteboard. So we'll spell it and, A-N-D, and. Then they'll have their magnetic letters and they'll mix and fix it, A-N-D, and. Then they'll write it on the table with just their finger, or if you have some teachers have a whiteboard table where they can actually write on the table and erase it. It's super neat. We have those in our library center. Or they can just finger write it on the table. And then they actually take their dry erase board marker and write it on a whiteboard. So this is all different activities to learn that single sight word. And then once they learn that sight word, they move on to another one. They're working on sentence reading. We're introducing leveled text reading and utilizing reading strategies here, like point and read. Look at the picture. Does it make sense? So now you can kind of start to see that my pre-A group, we're still working on some letters and sounds. And then the A through C group, we're starting to memorize sight words and learning our reading strategies and starting to read text. So it's really neat to see the students graduate through the different levels and see where they end up at the end of the year. That's why I love kindergarten. The growth is phenomenal. So here's an example of a lovely guided reading leveled text. So remember I showed you that picture in the library with all of the different leveled text? All I had to do was go and grab this. And this is, I believe, an A book. It already has a lesson plan. And remember I said that there's some different things in there. We have a lot of scholastic books. We have a lot of things from the Jan Richardson program that other teachers have made collectively and just added to the collection that went along with the book. This one is actually by Alpha Kids. And it has just some vocabulary words that you can go over before you even start reading the book. We typically go over the tricky words or sight words that the students may or may not know just yet. And then we start talking about the book and they start pointing and reading. And so what I do with the books is, and I've adapted this from another teacher when I was in first grade. So what happens is they point and read, and we might read the book together once. And then the next day, I knock, and one student starts to read the whole book. And then I knock, and the student number 2 starts to read the whole book. And then I knock, and student 3, and then knock, student 4, they start to read the whole book. So each student is reading a different, they're going to be on a different page. They're reading the same book, but you can really kind of stick your head in, lean in, stick your head in and listen and see what they need help with. And they know to raise their hand if they need help with a particular word so they don't skip it. And this is an activity from the Jan Richardson program, just so you can kind of help each student. And then the other students aren't waiting on you. They're reading on their own, and then they're going back and reading the text again. So my C plus group, it looks very similar. My A through C and my C plus groups are very similar. We might still do the same sight word puzzle activity with a different sight word or a tricky word that they need practice with. The only difference is the text and what they're reading is differentiated because it's leveled. It's a harder level. Then we start talking about text-related questions and even add in reading with expression and intonation. And then once again, we work on our tricky sounds, our blends, digraphs, and combinations. So whole group instruction, how do you differentiate that? Well, I also utilize one-on-one work or small group interventions while the others work independently or at different centers and stations. And here's where you can also use partner work, okay? Pair a partner that knows that specific skill set with someone that needs a little extra help, and then they get to work with each other and learn from their peers. Differentiated material according to their individualized education plan or their IAP or any other specific plans for the student, because we have to follow that and we have to make a plan for students that need an IEP or an IAP so that they are getting something that they can manage. It's a specific skill that they are working on at their level. So that's what you have to do with differentiation. You have to meet them where they're at, and then you'll push them to growth. Because if it's too hard for them, students are just going to get frustrated and they're going to shut down. So we like to differentiate the material so that each student is learning on whatever level they're at. And also, that just goes back to, is it a hands-on activity? Are they hearing it? Are they seeing it? Because we like to incorporate all of those into our classroom. Because for me, I'm a hands-on learner. Like, I know you can't see me right now, but you saw me in the beginning of this presentation, and you're going to see me at the end kind of swaying and using my hands. I just can't sit still, and I don't like to read directions. I like to hear it. I like to see it. I like to have somebody show me, like, one-on-one. So we have to think about that. Think about how you learn as an adult. Okay, like sometimes there's staff meetings after school. It's really hard to sit there and listen. But when our team, we also kind of do like little fun activities and staff meetings. Think about that. Does that make a difference? Do you learn more when it's engaging and it relates back to you? Think about that for your students. How can you reach them? So have volunteers, assistants, or other students work with a group just to utilize that time. Have student-led centers. Can a student lead a center? Can they teach a center for you? Especially in some of the older groups. This is great. This would be awesome because then that kind of takes, that gives you time back as the teacher because they're just reinforcing what you already worked with those students. Interventions, so we have tier 2 and tier 3 pullouts. And like I said, that just really made that difference in between where my student was at, when she came to me like before or after Christmas to where she is now at the end of the year. Remember that example? I'm telling you guys, it is just awesome. It is just awesome to have different supports, okay? It is a team effort. So her tier 3 interventionist and myself, we've been working with her in the classroom, and then her grandma's also been working with her at home. And I'm telling you guys, I'm just so proud of her. It makes all the difference having these interventions and backups. Can somebody help at home? Can a sibling help? Can another student help in the classroom? And then that just follows up with that. Seek support from home. I know that might not happen in every scenario, but when it is available to you, use those resources at home or outside of the classroom. All right, welcome to my classroom, guys. Here are some organization tips and tricks. This is right behind my guided reading table. And You know how I said I was going to build and add on to my guided reading centers? Well, I'm also still working on my organization. I'm still learning, okay? And some of you guys might be looking at this and say, whoa, that is not organized. Or some of you guys may think, whoa, how did she get it that organized? It just depends, and it really depends on the day, because if you walk into my classroom and we're doing testing, it is not organized at all. But having your materials somewhat organized really makes a difference because you're not looking for things. I have literally sat down to start testing for a big test and couldn't find materials before, and it just it put us behind a little bit. Like I said, things happen, but just knowing where everything's at and having everything planned out for the week helps. It makes a big difference. So here is what I use right here. 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is my pre-A readers, my A group in the middle, and then C plus. And really this is, like I said, it could be A through C, the middle of the road, and then C plus, those that really need to be challenged. And some of my guys in this group this year are working on first grade level things. It's just awesome to see and meet each student at whatever level they're at and whatever, wherever they need to work at. So it's just great to see all the growth in each group, not just the high group, not just the low group, because each student has potential. Okay, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox. I just love guided reading groups. And we really, despite all of the challenges this year because of COVID, they have just learned so much despite all the obstacles. So I'm just really excited and proud to be talking about my group this year. So this is how I organize whatever we're doing for the week. My A group, A through C, and then C plus. You could also use this. This is kind of like a catch-all drawer right now. But if you didn't want to use little buckets like this, you could use this for your different groups 1, 2, and 3. Or if you have 6 groups, get 2 of these. Or I put this on here because this is how I organize my work for the regular day, a regular instruction, like whole group instruction day, but you can also use these for guided reading groups. A lot of this I got, I believe, at Target or Michael's. This helps organize those fun centers, and I'm going to be putting some more of these little task cards together this summer, so I'm really excited to grow and expand my guided reading groups. So I'll show you this on the next page, but this is how I keep all my tools together. And then this is kind of like a catch-all drawer, but each student had their own whiteboard and their own little basket with the dry erase board marker and eraser and pencil and things like that. So that's just where I store all that. I got this. I just upgraded because last year I didn't have enough room. So I just got this last summer at IKEA, I believe. So you can see what your school has. They may have some, some storage units or things that they're not using. You can ask your community. They may have something for cheap. This was actually on sale. You don't have to use anything fancy like this, but just find what works for you and keep your materials organized and differentiated because it really helps. Just grab and go. So this I found online. I think it's actually like a fishing toolbox maybe on Amazon. It was pretty cheap, maybe like $20, $19-$20, and then I spray painted it over the summer and found this on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm telling you guys, get on that website. It's great. And then everything is just organized and it has a home. I'm not fishing for anything. I just, memorize where everything's at or look at the label and pull it out. This I'll talk about this resource in just a little bit, but you can just see how she organized centers all year long by the months. This is in my classroom. So these are the different centers that I had. I had an extra center this year because we couldn't have as many people at our guided reading tables because of COVID and there just wasn't enough space. Then we also have fun centers at the end of the day, and that's where I pull more one-on-one or just reinforce with the tier 2 and tier 3 students. Just extra practice at the end of the day. So this is how I rotate the centers. The numbers do not change. I just move the cards. So left to right. So this one will come here, left to right, and then this one goes back up here. So I've pulled the cards with the students' names just for confidentiality. So these are just the names of my centers. So here's my center and then my assistant center. So I pulled the students' names, but I have their names and what group they're at. Just because I have a piece of paper and I have it on my computer, but things get lost sometimes, even though I try to be organized. So it's just nice having a central location where the students, what center they're in, they just, we can just go over there and look. It's already ready. And if you have older students that can read, they can see what center they're at and how they rotate. All right, organization, the Farrah Henley way. So this is that picture that I showed you about that we were going to talk about. So even at my guided reading in the media center, we have all of our little books organized in Ziploc bags like this. It just makes things easy to access, and you can differentiate the material. Even subjects, you can even differentiate the subjects in bags like these or containers like these. Once again, you don't have to spend a ton of money if you don't want to. You can find cheap things at the dollar store. These I've seen before, probably at Michael's. And then here's another one. This is what I mean by I'm going to upgrade my guided reading groups because I'm fairly organized, but it could be even better. I love these, and I love how they have, supply lists. What do you need? And if you have some of the older students, they could pull all this stuff on their own once you teach them like how to retrieve and how to work those centers, and they can just be student-led centers. So this is a great way to organize everything and keep it together depending on the different subject or different skill area that you're working on. Resources. Like I said, guys, use your resources at school. So my teacher assistant, she came up with this term because she used to work in daycare. She came up with this term, co-teacher. And I love that because we both work so well together and we're both teaching the children all different kinds of things, about life, about how to tie your shoes, how to blow your nose, and then teaching them phonics and math and how to read and just how to learn. So I love that word, co-teacher. Rely on your co-teachers, your mentors, administration, and support. Check to see what resources your school and library has available to you. Teachers pay teachers. And I get that some of that costs, but maybe you could split it with your grade level team. Maybe your school has some money that you can use in your classroom. A lot of resources are free on there too, guys, and you can sort it by grade level. I love this resource. If you teach kindergarten, the Kindergarten Smorgasbord. He's another one where I just watch his guided reading activities and just kind of adapt and make them my own. He's a great resource for kindergarten. Or even elementary. You can watch him and just see how he leads the centers and then change the activities, to meet your curriculum and your standards. I follow other teachers on social media. Here I referenced him again. Professional development, webinars, book studies, conferences. Because when you just dip into different pools of knowledge, you kind of create your own identity based on what you've seen and learned over the past years and what you will continue to learn. And that's kind of what happened with me. My principal, she described me as a sponge. I just kind of jumped in and just learned from my peers and just soaked up all that information and adapted it into my own. And that's what you have to do. You have to find your identity, what works for you. Lakeshore Learning, really good stuff. They have a lot of things that you can buy on there for the classroom. Create a wish list on Amazon and share it. You may get some things. You may be surprised. Use what you have. That's a biggie. You don't even have to go buy a ton of things. Use what you already have at home or in the classroom, or hopefully you guys have some resources in the media center. We use the Jan Richardson program, the Moffat Girls. I showed you some of their different fun centers for kindergarten, and they have things for elementary school. Farrah Henley, I just love her organization. I'm just so excited to just continue to grow and make, the years easier and easier as more experience comes. So students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Super important. Just build that classroom community and those relationships, and then the rest will come. I promise it is worth it. it's worth it? Do they know you care? Do you have good relationships with their parents? Make those relationships and connections, and with your peers and faculty also. Find a system that works for you and utilize that. Positive reinforcement reward system for progress, and just be careful on how you word things. Like, if, okay, nice try again, or let's try that again, or look at that one more time. Just positive reinforcement even when they don't get it right. Self-care for yourself and brain breaks for the kids. Make learning relatable, fun, and engaging. Fluency and fitness is on Teachers Pay Teachers. Smartboard games, etc. Like I mentioned, our physical phonics. Be a lifelong learner. Stay hungry. And here are just some references that I used. So guys, thank you again for coming. I'm so excited to share this journey with you. I'm thinking about you. Please email if you have any questions, if I can help you in any way. And I just wish you the best of luck. So I have another little short video clip at the end. But really, thank you for your time, and I just wish you all the best. And have a great day. All right, guys. Well, that about wraps it up for today's session. I just wanted to remind you that the work that you do matters. You are enough. Give yourself grace. There are going to be great days. There's going to be some bad days, and then there's going to be some in-between days. All of those days matter as long as you show up for your students and show them that you love and care about them. It's going to be a good day. Learn from your mistakes. Lean on your peers, your teachers, your support around you, and just look to them for guidance and support. I just wanted to wish you the best of luck on your journey. Remember, self-care. Have a set schedule, okay? I know that sometimes we often bring work home. I know I do that, especially with the fun activities. It's just nice to get things done at home. But if you're going to do that, maybe pick a day or two out of the week and maybe work a little bit later on those days, or maybe bring a few things home. But after that, cut it off. Practice self-care, because you have to take care of yourself before you take care of anybody else. Because if you're running on low fuel, sometimes it's hard to give our best self during the workday. So just know that you're going to do awesome. I am so excited for you and your journey. And if I can help in any way in the future, then be sure to give me a shout out, give me an email. I hope that you learned something, even if you took one thing away from today's session. I hope that you have a wonderful school year and have a great rest of your summer. Bye, guys.